Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I'm here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And Adobe's in more trouble. We're going to do a follow-up to the videos we did talking about Adobe and their ridiculous new terms of service that were basically allowing them to snoop in your files and train their AI with your work. Well, it gets so much worse for them. Now the US is suing Adobe for deceiving subscriptions that are too hard to cancel, according to The Verge. And then we're going to talk about how Adobe's own staff were not happy with the changes to the terms of service.
Wait, so Adobe will get punished, but Google can do all kinds of crap and take down all kinds of websites, and the Department of Justice doesn't do anything about that?
Yes.
I'm just pointing that out.
Yes. Yeah, we'll talk about this, but this is a very interesting development, and I just want to point this out because I put this out on Twitter last week, and we've been taking our own advice. You can actually get Affinity now 50% off, which is a competitor to Adobe, and we've been kicking the tires on it here for a couple of weeks. Actually, Squid King's been using it for thumbnails, and I might switch a lot of our workflow over to it. It actually seems to work pretty well, and it's not always online, and as far as I know, it's not spying on you, and it's a lot cheaper than Adobe. You buy the package once, and that's it. You don't have to pay $50 a month or $60 a month or whatever Adobe is now. So again, that's Affinity. It's a good alternative. Now, people said that they're getting purchased, or they were purchased by Canva, which concerns me.
Yeah, so how long is that going to take?
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. Like, enjoy it now, but I think it's probably going to go this.
Flashbacks to the Canva event where Bob Iger is one of their, I think, on their board and has a lot of stock in Canva, where they had stupid, awful rap songs and talked about AI a lot. So yeah, I mean, we'll see how this goes.
Enjoy it while you can. That's all I'm saying. So let's talk about Adobe. First, we're going to talk about their deceiving subscription policy, which a lot of companies are doing this. I've noticed they make it very, very hard to cancel, which is illegal. But you can't blame them for trying. But I know, like, every time we've tried to cancel, like DirecTV or something, like, you have to call them. You can't just do it on the website. And they always do that. And then they want to get you on the phone. They want to actually try to upsell you. Mm-hmm.
I know. Every time my parents would call to cancel, like, their DirecTV or satellite or whatever, my dad would get off the phone spending more money.
Yeah, because that's their it's customer retention is what they call it. Or if you want a deal, you just have to call them and threaten to cancel. And a lot of times they'll give you like a new subscriber deal. They'll be like, oh yeah, we'll give it to you 50% off for the next 6 months or something.
But then we're going to jack it up to 3 times what you're paying before.
Right. And there's always that entry level, and Comcast does that, especially with their internet. Like, oh yeah, it's only going to be like, $100 a month or whatever, $200 a month. And then like after your trial is over, whatever the period was, like a year or 2 years or whatever, they're like, oh, now it's like $350 a month.
You wanted usable internet? Wow.
Yeah.
that's upcharge.
That's an upcharge. Oh my God. Yeah. Comcast, every time I would complain about internet speed, they'd be like, well, our suggestion is to just upgrade your package. I'm like, of course that's your suggestion.
But when you're at like the most expensive package already, you really can't go anyplace else,
Right. And the one time, man, I actually called the FTC, and they came in. They actually rewired a good portion of town because our area had not been updated in a while, and it showed because we're getting about a third of what we paid for.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, back to the important thing.
Let's talk about Adobe. Yeah, so this is coming from The Verge. The U.S. sues Adobe for deceiving subscriptions that are too hard to cancel. The Justice Department alleges that Adobe hid early cancellation fees and trapped consumers in pricey subscriptions.
So you have to pay a fee if you cancel.
Yeah, well, a lot of times they're like, oh, yeah, it's whatever a month, but then you read the fine print, it's like, yes, but you have to commit to 2 years. And again, this is very similar to DirecTV and Comcast, where your minimum is like a 2-year buy-in or whatever. I said, yeah, the Department of Justice claims Adobe has harmed consumers by enrolling them in its default, most lucrative subscription plan without clearly disclosing important plan terms. And this is on top of them being allowed to snoop in your files. And we'll talk about that after this.
How do you blow yourself up? Just ask Adobe.
The lawsuit alleges Adobe hides the terms of its annual paid monthly plan in the fine print and behind optional text boxes and hyperlinks. In doing so, the company fails to properly disclose the early termination fees incurred upon cancellation that can amount to hundreds of dollars.
Oh.
When the customers do attempt to cancel, the Department of Justice alleges that Adobe requires them to go through an onerous and complicated cancellation process that involves navigating through multiple web pages and pop-ups. It then allegedly ambushes customers with an early termination fee, which may discourage them from canceling. Yeah, because what happens is like, oh, we're sorry, you used Photoshop for a month and you don't want it. Yeah, okay, well, you owe us like $400 or whatever. So what they're doing is they're basically financing the software, but you don't actually own it because you always have to be online. You know what I'm saying? Like, again, you can get Affinity for now, and you just buy it and download it, and that's it. Customers encounter similar obstacles when attempting to cancel their subscriptions over the phone or via live chat. The complaint claims subscribers have had their calls or chats either dropped or disconnected.
Oh, been there, not with Adobe, but with other places.
Other places, yeah. And have had to re-explain the reason for calling when they try to reconnect. This is intentional. Sometimes it's incompetence. Sometimes it's intentional.
This feels intentional.
Yeah.
Yes.
What they want you to do, and this is actually a psychology issue, what they want you to do is get frustrated and just give up. Like, it's easier, it's worth it to me to just keep the subscription because my time is worth more than the time it's in the frustration of trying to explain to the customer service person. Some people will do that. I mean, I actually get really busy sometimes and I get on the phone with, and I'm just like, I don't have time for this crap. And then I forget to cancel it or I forget to whatever. I'm like,
That's what they're hoping for.
Yeah. They're like, okay, we'll put you on hold for an hour. You'll just suck it up, buttercup. They said the lawsuit alleges that these practices break federal laws designed to protect consumers. Lawsuit also targets Adobe execs Maninder Sahani, the senior vice president of digital go-to-market and sales, as well as David Wadhwani. I am probably butchering those names.
Sorry.
The president of I'm sure they're watching our video. The president of the company's digital media business. The complaint says both executives directed, controlled, had the authority to control, or participated in the acts and practices of Adobe. Adobe didn't respond to a request for comment. They trapped consumers into year-long subscriptions through hidden early termination fees. Yeah, they made it hard to cancel. So they're talking about how the stuff we talked about, that up until 2012, Adobe, you bought the software, you got it on a disk. You put it on your computer, and if you wanted to upgrade when the next upgrade came out, you'd go either buy the upgrade package for a couple $100, or you just go buy a whole new Creative Suite. And those of us who were cash strapped at the time would, buy a used copy of last year's model on eBay. That's usually what we did. You know, we always had legal copies of Adobe, but we would get it cheaper because somebody else would upgrade, and I'd just go buy a copy on eBay or something. But yeah, this is it. And then we're talking about this other situation with the AI art, which they actually brought up. They brought up in that article too. They said this is on top of it. Almost feels like, I mean, look. Do I think Adobe's doing some scummy stuff? That almost feels like somebody's gunning for Adobe. Like, this lawsuit drops a week or two after they get backlash for
It is weird. Like I said, especially when you have Google out there doing all the weird stuff that's been going on with their websites and things. And a lot of sites are losing all their ad revenue because they're not being found, or they're shutting down because they just completely sunk in both traffic and revenue.
Yep.
And they're allowed to just tank thousands and thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of sites. And that's okay. And when they put up AI information that it comes above everything else, a lot of times it's wrong. A lot of times it's been wrong. People taking shots of it. And it's been like telling people to put glue on pizza and things like that. And then, no one does anything about that situation. But, Adobe is like, oh, you can't cancel. The Department of Justice is going to come knocking at your door. I'm like, well, I don't understand. I mean, I get it. I get what you're doing, but why aren't you doing something about the situation with Google? But okay.
And it's been this way. It's been this way with Adobe for years. I mean, this isn't even the terms of service that give them.
They've had it in there. Yeah.
They've had it in there for years. Now, has it been as egregious, and with AI and stuff, people are more vigilant about this stuff. But you know what I'm saying?
Understandable.
But it does seem weird that it's like boom, boom, like this is a kill shot. This is like, yeah, okay, what would it take to take Adobe out of play? Oh, okay, let's get the Department of Justice on them, and then let's leak the new terms of service and get people to talk about it on social media and write hit pieces, and then nobody will trust Adobe again. It does kind of feel like there's something going on. Now, I'm saying
they don't deserve it.
Oh, I think they absolutely deserve it.
Because two things can be correct at the same time. I think it does feel like they're being targeted, but I also think that they kind of have it coming. So both things can be correct.
Yeah. So this is coming from 80 level. Adobe's staff is also unhappy with the company's terms of service. Yeah, they said they're talking about the controversy, and they said apparently the community's dissatisfaction with the company grew so intense that even Adobe's own staff started expressing unhappiness about the whole ordeal, a relatively rare occurrence in an era when many employment contracts often pressure employees to unconditionally support the company's decisions and strategies. As reported by Business Insider, which obtained Adobe's internal Slack discussions.
Oh, okay. Well, someone's leaking the internal Slack stuff to Business Insider?
So what is going on here?
That's weird.
The company's workers appear to be siding with regular users, voicing complaints about the terms of service updates and the resulting backlash, as well as Adobe's poor communication and apparent mishandling of the situation. This is coming from their Slack.
So this is stuff that was never supposed to be seen by the public.
If our goal is truly to prioritize our users' best interests, which, to be honest, I sometimes question, it's astonishing how poor our communication can be, wrote one Adobe employee. The general perception is Adobe is an evil company that will do whatever it takes to fuck its users. Let's avoid becoming IBM, which seems to be surviving primarily due to its entrenched market position and legacy systems. Watching the misinformation spread on social media like wildfire is really disheartening. Still, a loud fuck Adobe and cancel Adobe rhetoric is happening within the independent creator community that needs to be addressed. Yeah. And this isn't the first time that they've stepped in it. I mean, they're primarily their audience are creatives, right? I mean, you've got business people that use, Acrobat or whatever, but they put a post out there about how Adobe could basically paint itself with prompts. You don't have to, and they kept doubling down on that. And people are like, this is not the right time to be pushing your AI stuff when creatives are worried about losing their jobs as it is, so they tried to clarify it. And they're trying to say they never trained their AI on customer data. We never trained generative AI on customer content, taking ownership of a customer's work or allowed access to customer content beyond legal requirements. People aren't going to believe you. I mean, this is a 1-2 punch. You got this, and then it's followed with a lawsuit.
Okay, they might not have, but then they have, nor were we considering any of those practices. Then why did you state it that way? That's what I'm saying. Okay, it's like, you can claim you never did it before. Okay, fine. Right. Maybe, but okay. But then you're saying we have no plans on doing it. Then why word it the way you did?
Yeah.
Why, it doesn't make any sense. If you had no plans to do that, why do that? Why put it in there then? That doesn't make any sense. Just leave it as is.
Yeah, it's very curious. Basically, it was nebulous enough that if they change their mind in the future, they have an out. Like, well, you agreed to this, these terms 2 years ago or whatever.
That's typical legal, crap. Is that we keep it nebulous so that you agree to it, and then we can say, well, we interpret it to mean this for you, and we interpret it to mean that for some other person, 5 years ago, and then we'll interpret it differently for the next person who complains in 3 years,
Well, they were trying to claim that, the only reason we would snoop in your files is if you were suspected of having CP on your cloud drive or something. But I'm like, yeah, but somebody could false flag you and say they've got CP. You need to look into their account. Here's their username. Here's what I'm saying.
That's the problem too with the way people draw characters. Some people just draw characters that look younger, even if they're not. It's just the way they do it. And some people intentionally do that. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about people, who draw a character who is actually an adult, but they might be like, a young adult. So they look like a teenager. Doesn't mean it's, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's because it's a child pornography, CP.
Yeah,
and
right.
It's like, but that doesn't the intent, It's a very slippery slope.
Well, yeah, and creatives, I mean, a lot of these people, they have beefs with one another, and I think that was kind of what was going on.
Yes, people would totally, definitely false flag people.
Absolutely. Somebody that they thought was a rival or somebody that they didn't like on Twitter or something. Like, we saw this with Patreon.
Oh my gosh, you voted for Trump. That means you like little kids. So I have no evidence as such, but I'm going to tell them that you do.
Yeah, just basically anything to take you out of play. Basically, whatever underhanded, weaselly thing somebody can do to try to...
You voted for Biden. You sniff little kids. I'm going to report you.
Well, that's what was going on with Patreon. I don't think Patreon on their own was doing stuff. I think Patreon basically would look into people's Google Drives to see what they're drawing based on snitches. People were trying to snitch on them. And a lot of times I think it was as simple as a rival artist stupidly thinks if they take somebody off the board that they're going to get more, and all that's going to happen is somebody better than you is going to take that person's cookie, And they don't understand that Like if you're failing, taking the person that you're blaming for your failure out of play
doesn't make you better.
Doesn't make you better. Doesn't mean you're going to.
Doesn't make you suck less.
It doesn't make you suck less. It's a you problem. A lot of times this is a you problem. But I digress. But there's a lot of backbiting in this industry, and just to say, like, this is the audience that Adobe courted, and of course they're going to turn on you. Absolutely, I'm turning on Adobe. I'm like, hell, I've been buying
Adobe forever.
Forever, since before we got married.
Yes. You're a loyal Adobe user for, over 20 years.
I've been using Adobe since Photoshop 3. That's how long I've been using it. And I'm like, I think I can do without it. If you guys are going to snoop in my files and I've got to be perpetually online, I've been complaining to you about how it's slowing my computer down. My computers I use to do graphic design and art are actually pretty decent computers, and they're being choked out by all the AI shit that they're putting on there that I don't want, that I don't use. So good luck with that, Adobe. We're going to wrap it up.
Yep.
Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later.
Bye.